Let's get to cover today a very, very important topic in international business, the topic of the day, and the topic of the day is revolutions, right? And later on we'll continue to the topic of the night, which is tiger, right? So let's tie tiger to revolutions. It's going to take us quite a while. First of all, international business. You need to evaluate the political environment in a country. We did this in chapter 2 or so. Now, the political, you need to have a clear understanding of two very different aspects of the political stability. So, political stability could be in the sense that the government is unstable, that the government is unreliable, that the government will come after your taxes, will come after you with taxes, that the government will confiscate stuff. Okay? So political, oops, I meant here instability, could be part of the, or the risk for an international business, the risk for an international business could be coming from the government. Like, example is Russia. Many Western businesses invested in Russia during the transition after 1998 collapse of the whole Russian economy. ExxonMobil, a lot of Western companies made a lot of huge investments over there. And later on comes Putin, and he decides to nationalize their company's resources. So losses are not in the millions, losses are in the billions. Companies lost billions of dollars. And we can come down the road and maybe expand on the list over here as I'm getting to the topic of instability. But we have a more important and more common source of instability, and it's the people. And usually it comes in various forms which will generalize under the common term, which is very strong, and I don't mean it to be as strong as revolutions. Now, they don't call them always revolutions. They call it with a nice name like the Arab Spring. But the Arab Spring is a chain or a sequence of revolutions around the Arab world. When I was in 2011 working and teaching in Bahrain, we had there was a huge revolution, a lot of bloodshed. Of course, you don't want to go to the streets because on the streets you actually see blood on the concrete spill, where hundreds and hundreds of people got, got killed. Thousands of people got injured, and this was terribly disruptive for the economy. Well, that was February of 2011. During the revolution, you don't go out. You don't go anywhere. classes got canceled for a month, right? I mean, you guys know the feeling of classes being canceled for a week, right? So classes got canceled just for a full month. They said, okay, 1 month, no classes, nothing. Well, this is terribly disruptive for businesses. People don't go out. I just go to the supermarket, I buy some water, I buy food, and the only thing I consume at home is internet. That's it. There's no shopping, no this, no that. Yeah, there will be the occasional discos open in some areas far away from the revolutionary areas. But the Arab Spring proved devastating for many businesses in Bahrain. Many financial institutions had opened businesses over there, and those financial institutions had extremely hard times because of the Arab Spring. I just had, and some of you have seen me coming over here, I have a visitor from a Filipino visitor. She worked in Bahrain 2 years ago. Well, she has been working there for the last 5 years. Well, she's here now because she told me, look, things are really bad over there, and ever since February of 2011, the economy has been going from bad to worse, to the point where jobs are hard to come by. The unemployment has skyrocketed. Most businesses, especially small restaurants, small shops, small this, small that, have gone bankrupt to the point where she could not find any kind of decent job over there. She just basically left and went back home for the Philippines and decided to come here for a month on vacation, see how life is here in Phuket. Now, this tells you how bad things are in a relatively stable country like Bahrain. Now, where are things worse? Things are worse in, a lot worse in Egypt. You know, you had military, you had police, you had bloodshed, you had whatnot. I had a Bulgarian guy over here. He told me the following: man, we made a nice investment, bought a very nice luxury condo in Egypt, okay, and in Cairo. We bought it for 60,000 euro. Now we can't sell it even for 20. That's how bad things are. Tourist industry was totally and completely devastated. Who would, in their right mind, go on vacation to Egypt now? Where people are killing each other and you got a revolution going on. So the Egyptian economy was basically devastated, and as a logical consequence, if you were a foreign business, like a German international company, like a big concern, right? And you invested in Egypt, you pretty much are running losses or shutting down. Now, I can keep on the list. Yeah, well, why don't we do Syria, right? I mean, Syria had a huge revolution. The revolution is still going on. They're fighting. This is huge. It's big. Now, thousands of people are dying over there. Yemen. When I was there, and for many years, at least 2 years, I don't know, just haven't read recently, like in the last couple of months, but the situation in Yemen is simply disastrous over there, okay? Now, there has not yet been a major revolution in Saudi Arabia, but Saudi society is, we call it in English, boiling. It's ready to explode, okay? Now, the Arab Spring started with a major revolution where? Where was the country first started? Yeah, Tunisia or Tunis. Tunisia, or Tunisia, depending whether you pronounce it British or American, or just plain Tunis. That's where the revolution pretty much started. And then it moved in waves from a country across a country and went from the northern part of Africa, then it moved to the Arab Peninsula. Now, most of the times, the situation is pretty disastrous when you got a bad government coupled at the same time with people in a revolutionary mode. Example of this, actually, if I am, my memory serves me well, happening twice. So people revolting up against oppressive governments will be Iran. Iran, you have, and that's how it's called, the Iranian Revolution. Actually had twice, but that's a whole different story. So, I mean, I can add here the list to be Iran. All right, let's not pick on the Arab world. Just about 6 months ago, in June, mid-June, we had in my home country of Bulgaria. Bulgaria is a country where, you know, no big deal, small country and all the other things. Well, right on my birthday, Bulgarian people decided to have a very peaceful protest or demonstration up against the government because they were not happy with way too many things. Okay, well, the government in Bulgaria is it was very straightforward. It just ignores the people. I mean, they haven't sent the army. I mean, the police just keeps fairly quiet. Well, so the guys are staying there for a day. They're staying there for a week. They're staying there now for well, it was for a month. It's been now 6 months, and again, the country is slowly but steadily boiling to a point of a major revolution. Now you only got thousands of people on the streets, okay, in major protests. So yeah, let's write here my home country, Bulgaria. And you don't want to be a business like Metro or any others who made a huge investment in Bulgaria. Now people turning up, well, I already explained to you, people turned up a while ago against major international mega corporations who invested in Bulgaria, and now people perceive them as being exploitatory, right? People believe that corporations exploit them. Now people are turning both against major corporations and up against the government. And that's a recipe for a revolution, okay? Now, let's talk about the latest, greatest, and bloodiest revolution that just started about 2 weeks ago, which is, I mean, we're talking about army, police, thousands of people dead. It's just battle after battle after battle all the time, non-stop, from everywhere. Which country now is in a major, major revolution for the last 10, 12 days? You guys read news?
Ukraine.
What? Wow, amazing, perfect answer. Ukraine. Ukraine is in a major, major revolution. This country is now totally messed up. I mean, you don't want to be a Western international or international corporation having invested in Ukraine. Things are going horribly, horribly wrong, okay? So Ukraine is now totally destabilized. We're talking about tanks and military. I've seen quite a few movies around, YouTube videos of what's really going on. I mean, Ukraine, especially the capital, is a battlefield. It's just a giant battlefield. Now, this will destroy the economy for a long time, because it's not just the destruction of capital, it's the destruction of the what's called the economic fiber of the economy. People are not sure, should we invest later on, should we not invest, should we keep our money in the bank? Wouldn't it be safer just to take the money out, you know, put them in a German bank, while Germany is still relatively more stable, right? So, which other countries you have major battlefields going on for the last couple of years in Europe, where you got boiling low-level revolutions, where people are up against the government, they are fighting big battles? Come on guys, make guess. That's the topic of today, right? Greece, of course, Greece. Greece has been phenomenally unstable, meaning people revolting up against the government, people revolting up against the Troika. Are you all familiar with the Troika? 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 Let's keep repeating Troika. In Russian, it means three, or a triplet, and refers, if I would remember well, IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund. It's going to be the ECB and one other European institution. I'm just going to pick, I don't know, I'm not sure which is the third one. You will just type on Google, or anyone with those little toys that you got over there. Just type what Troika is in Google, and you can pull up which is the third major international institution, which go into Greece and tell the Greece what to do about austerity. So people in Greece are revolting up against the Troika, trying to impose austerity on the Greeks, and they are revolting up against their own government, okay? And basically, in Greece, you got a low-level boiling revolution. Now, the Greek economy has been pretty much destroyed economically without a revolution. The banking system exploded over there, and the government finances exploded over there. So the economy has been destroyed anyway, even if there is no revolution. And now the revolution makes things 10 times worse. Now we call this, what I'm trying to do for you and I'm building for you, it's called a laundry list. A laundry list of countries around the world where things aren't very stable, because we are getting to tiger, right? I'm trying to, to get my way down to tiger, because we need to talk about tiger. It's very important, because tiger ties a lot of things of what we're witnessing over here. So, after Greece, more countries which are in revolution. Let's stick to Europe. Next one.
Maybe Italy, I think.
Yes, not maybe, certainly. Italy is another small, low-level battlefield. Italy has all sorts of revolutionary spirits. You got a lot of battles going on. You got battles, police and people. So the Italian economy, again, was already destabilized before the people went on the streets, okay? So Italy. Another one is Spain. Spain has fairly revolutionary spirit going on. All right? It's not a true, genuine revolution, but you had a lot of people out on the streets and whatnot. They were able to do it. It's called a bloodless revolution. It was revolution, but there were not really real tanks. You don't have hundreds of people dead. Iceland had a fairly bloodless, fairly painless, but nonetheless a revolution, okay, where people stood up against major foreign businesses, mostly foreign banks. And if you were a foreign bank that invested in Iceland, sorry, you got screwed. You know, people revolted against you, and the government sided with the people against international corporations. So you had quite a few unlucky banks who misread the Iceland and basically took major hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. All right? So other countries which have been politically unstable, where you got a fairly brutal government and people revolting, switching now to some other places around the world. Right nearby will be Myanmar. Myanmar has been having, actually, for a while, a military dictatorship. Well, people are standing up, they're revolting, they can't handle the government anymore. Now it's kind of like they're trying to have it both ways. They, I don't want to discuss a lot. Any other countries around the world that are fairly or relatively unstable? Now, yeah?
Thailand.
Yes, Thailand. We're getting to Thailand and to Tiger. Before that.
Maybe the most of the African countries?
Yes, North Africa. Yes, that's part of the Arab Spring, Egypt and whatnot. Practically all of North Africa. Sometimes Western media presents Libya as a country that has been historically unstable. Libya is that, like, people are revolting up against Muammar Gaddafi. Now, what is the truth about who's behind it is not as important as an international business. What's important is that the country is politically unstable, that the country has military operations with tens of thousands of people dead, with capital destroyed, with morale destroyed, with business confidence destroyed, with hunger, suffering, electricity problems, water problems. So it doesn't really exactly matter who was behind the revolution and the war and what's going on over there. What's important is, within North America, that Libya was extremely unstable. And whether you are a Western business and you open and invested in a hospital or in any other business, the investment would prove to be disastrous anyway, independently of who was behind the revolution over there. So yes, let's just say all of North Africa. What else?
Maybe also in West Africa.
Yes, a lot of West Africa. Now there's a, let's try some countries there.
Not sure, maybe Nigeria, they had problems.
No, maybe, yes, Nigeria has always had problems. You always have people in Nigeria constantly up against the government, because the government is terribly corrupt and siding with international corporations. And people understand this very well. They understand that the government is fundamentally corrupt, that it sides with Western corporations, international multinationals. And the people understand that both the government and multinationals are ripping people off, meaning their wealth, natural wealth and natural resources, and people there are terribly, terribly, terribly poor. So let's get back to, again, I'm blanking out the country.
Nigeria?
Nigeria. Now, a country which has been unstable for a long time, again, people standing up against, bringing down the government, and without government for a long, long, long time. The country where, government is practically non-existent and constantly in chaos. In Africa. Let's try Somalia. Somalia has been constantly, pretty much no government at all. Now, another country which has been totally, completely unstable, and again, people rising up against.
Ethiopia?
Yeah, Ethiopia, sure. Ethiopia, sure, but before Ethiopia, I had in mind, you can't read it, Sudan. Sudan has been. Now, let me jump back because, you know, we can go all over Africa, and the answer is everybody knows that Africa is fundamentally unstable. Let's talk about more stable again. And now everybody knows that Southern Europe, the Mediterranean, we call these countries, let's use a special term for you so that when you read the media you actually understand it. It's called Club Med. Club Med are countries, European countries, that border on the Mediterranean. And Club Med includes Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and France. Okay? Well, 4 out of the 5 are totally and fundamentally unstable now, with people revolutions in them. I haven't heard too much about Portugal, but I'm sure they got a lot of economic problems for sure, but these economic problems always spill over into political instability. So, let's try and switch gears to see which country in its long 5,000 year of history has proven to have the biggest number of revolts and revolutions historically. Now we're out of Africa.
In Europe again?
No, not in Europe. It's in Asia. Country that has been known historically to be always the most unstable country, and a tiny little spark will always result in a revolution or rebellion or revolt. Country that is the most difficult, has always been historically, even today, to be always boiling and ready to explode. It has, if it's, we call it, define it as highly localized revolts, it has had a few hundred revolts in just the last couple of years. Country which is always historically, I'm talking about for the last 5,000 years, totally and completely unstable. Big country.
China?
China, yes, China has always been fundamentally unstable. Anytime something goes wrong, the Chinese people revolt up against their government. And that has been, or I mean their emperor historically. It has been mostly monarchy, it has been mostly empire. So China has been historically extremely unstable country. And it's just a matter of time, as soon as the economy goes bad, suddenly, you know, the Chinese people are up against their governments, okay? I mean, it's quite often. So, Chinese government is fundamentally, sorry, not government, not my mistake. It's the Chinese people and population very easy to spark into a revolution, okay? Not the government. That's a whole different story about the government. But China historically has been always ready to explode.
But with or without the economy going bad?
Well, usually Chinese revolts always start for one simple reason, and that simple reason is food. They always historically, for one reason or another, you're gonna have a bad weather, you're gonna get a bad crop, you're gonna get something else going on, like war, and in a war, the government's gonna go, they're gonna take most of their rice, because they eat rice, and whatever the cause of food shortage, if you get a food shortage, you'll get yourself a local revolt, or if the shortage is fairly nationwide, spread around, you're going to get yourself a revolution, okay? So China, usually, but the answer is generalized. Back in the old days, it's just an agricultural economy. So as soon as the economy goes bad, meaning you get shortages of food, so people don't have anything to eat, you get yourself a revolution, yeah. Again, it's very important to understand the relationship is amazingly simple, and that's why, let me write it out. Economic problems, if they're small, result in revolts, and if they're large, result in revolutions. Result in revolutions. So, usually, now here is another very, very, very good indicator, which is easily seen everywhere around the world. Part of the economic problems are general decline of the economy. So, economic problems, one is fairly straightforward. Economic decline. As in recession, as in depression. But another one which has usually been a driver, as it appears to be also here in Thailand, is economic inequality. Inequality. As inequality rises and people get to perceive that the economy is doing well, that the economy is booming, that some people are getting rich real fast, but their lives don't improve. In other words, when economic inequality increases rapidly, people are ready to rise in a revolt. Now, you got a very, very low level revolutionary spirit, not yet a real revolution, but you got both of these ingredients which are right now brewing and cooking for a major revolution will be the United States. US inequality has gone sky high. It has never been more unequal in its 200 and so many, like 240-year history. The US inequality has never been higher. And US inequality has just skyrocketed over the last 10 or 15, let's say, over the last 15 or 18 years. Since the boom, tech boom in 1996, 1997, inequality in the United States has risen sky high for the last 15 years. Well, inequality is not always enough. But now you got economic recession, economic depression. The technical term which journalists and economists have coined for the recession that started in 2008, they got a brand new name. It's a journalist name. They call it the Great Recession. But the Great Recession is still effectively going on. The economy is still going from bad to worse. It started in 2008. It has been going on now for 5 years and a few months. And by the time we're nowhere still in the middle of the recession, okay, the recession, keeps grinding, okay. Well, now they like to say that the economy, because they say, well, no, it's not really a recession. So they say, well, the economy is only in stagnation. The economy is stagnant. stagnation. Say, well, the economy is stagnant, in stagnation, all right? Well, but by the time this thing is over, some have coined a brand new term as the Greater Depression. And everybody knows the Great Depression was the Great Depression, not the Greater. The Great Depression was from 1929 all the way to, let's say, 1945 or 46, doesn't matter. 44 lasted roughly 15 years. This is it's called the interwar period between World War I and World War II, was the Great Depression. So some economists, they are alternative, of course the mainstream and governments completely reject it, say, hey, we're entering the period of the Greater Depression, where the current depression is going to be way worse than the Great Depression some 70 or 80 years ago. Okay? So, US is boiling, it's brewing, it's, ripening for, you have a lot of, again, protests and demonstrations in Washington, D.C. and whatnot. And people do perceive, for some reason, strangely, U.S. as a remarkably stable economy, where in reality the economy is certainly not stable. The financial system is certainly not stable. The political system's got its own problems over there. They got sky-high budget deficits. They keep arguing about the debt and the debt ceiling, meaning America is swimming in an ocean of debt, okay? And now, slowly but steadily, you got these revolutionary spirits going on, and people are slowly getting sick and tired of the American government and I'm talking about American people, getting ready to revolt and maybe rise in a revolution, okay? And who knows, I'm not saying it's going to happen next year, but hey, it might within the next 3, 5, or 10 years, it might, All you need is a little more for the economy to go bad and a little more for the inequality to increase, and you might as well get one, okay? So, all of this is just some of the countries that have been fundamentally unstable, so that we finally get to where we are over here, is what we had in the last, 10 days? Thailand has been fundamentally, or let's say politically destabilized, okay, politically destabilized, and we got the same two things going on. Number one, apparently, I noticed the other night when I was in Tiger that things in the economy are going pretty bad over here, and at the same time, there is a fairly rising inequality. All right. So now let's get back to the economy. Economy here is mostly driven by tourism. Okay, you all understand that, especially in here. And here's what's going on. I go there at Tiger, and Tiger is what? That's on Bangla Road, and it's empty. You got all the working girls there working, but it's mostly empty. No customers, no business. So as I walk around Patong, what I see is tourism. The season's not very good. I talk to a lot of people in restaurants, in the massage parlors, in the hotels. They tell me the same thing. They say, it's high season, but it's low season. High season means lots of tourists were supposed to be flooding in here, But they say the tourists are not here. Australians were coming for a long time as being the best customers in here. Australians aren't around. Usually the tourist flows typically during high season triples relative to the low season. So the number of tourists triple, the number of tourists in the hotels roughly triple, the number of tourists eating in restaurants roughly triples, the number of tourists in the massage parlors roughly triples. In other words, as November and December comes and weather gets really good, traffic starts speeding up, and as I was told, because I haven't seen it, it gets terribly crowded over here, okay? And prices seasonally begin to go up. Well, I've been here since May, mid-May, May 14, I came in here, so today I'm making like, was it 7 months? And guess what? Just the way it was in May, the same was in June, the same was in July, and everyone was telling me how in October and especially in November, business is going to pick up. Well, November came, November passed, but business didn't pick up. I haven't seen more people walking in Patong. I haven't seen more tourists around. Business is not picking up. Now, middle of December, meaning the other night, is just the same it was a month ago, 3 months ago, 5 months ago. And as I talk to people, tell them, oh, things are really bad. Most hotels are half empty, 2/3 empty. Now, as I walked the other evening over there, 11 o'clock, it struck me in those side, not the front main street, which is right along the beach, and not the second street, which is parallel to the beach, but the streets that are across, leading to the beach, they're like empty. I took a picture, nice big street, okay? On both sides, shops, restaurants, discos, bars, clubs, everything, and I took a picture with nobody. 11 o'clock, nobody. This means that things are, the economy is going bad. And again, now you gotta understand what Patong is. Patong's got people working, coming to work from all of Thailand. I talked to a lot of girls over there and say, hey, I always ask them, where are you from? And they say, Bangkok. And I always ask the question, Every single one tells me from Bangkok, I always ask, you don't have good jobs in Bangkok? And the answer is almost always the same. Oh yeah, we got good jobs, but here in Phuket, jobs are a lot better. And here, Phuket's got a lot better paying jobs. Jobs in Phuket pay a whole lot better than in Bangkok. So, and I always ask, well, is here, Phuket the best paying area in all of Thailand? They say, oh yeah, and in all of Phuket, Patong will be the best paying place. So, if you are anybody, anywhere in Thailand, you want to get a good, well-paying job, the best place within Thailand will be go to Patong, okay? There's always jobs there. They're always hiring. Well, guess what? If this is the indicator of the best place of the economy in here, and now it's not picking up, meaning Tiger at 1 o'clock, 1:30 is empty, this means that something is going wrong. Now, we know what's going wrong. What's going wrong, of course, is you got the Australian economy crashing and burning. The Australian economy had a huge boom, and now you got a huge bust in the Australian economy. So all of these Australians who are spending big money freely aren't spending anymore. You had all the Britishers who were getting easy money from the government, and before they had a wild real estate bubble. Everyone was making big money in Great Britain from real estate. They were coming and spending over here. Somehow they tell me, oh well, we don't have as many Britishers anymore. So the way I get to gauge the economy, I always ask, well, how many years have you been working here? And they say, well, I've been working for the last 3 years. They say, okay, well, where are the best customers coming from? They say, oh, Australia, number one. They say, well, how are Australians this year? I say, no, not good. So what about next one? They say, oh, UK. Well, how is it this year? I say, well, there aren't very many. They say, well, we also get quite a few Americans, not as many. So turns out that the best customers, meaning the best spenders historically, for some reason, this year aren't coming. Well, the reason we know is that their home economy in Australia is going bad, in the UK is going bad, in the US is going bad, in Europe is going bad. So the only thing left are the Chinese. Only the Chinese are still coming, and only the Chinese are spending. And as I'm walking and I keep saying, hey, where you come from? I say, oh, I'm from Japan. I say, oh, how is Japan doing? They say, oh, we're okay and whatnot. And I always keep asking about their economy. So the Japanese economy has been bad for the last 23 years, but it's still holding. It's not just collapsed completely. It's just slowly and slowly and slowly, 23 years. The Japanese economy has been stagnant for 23 years. They created a giant bubble during the 1980s. The bubble burst in 1990. And since 1990, for 23 years, the Japanese economy has been stagnant. Now, a fairly booming economy where a lot of tourists are still Korean. So all you got to do to see which economy is doing well is to walk the streets of Patong and see where people are coming from. So it's actually, by talking to the tourists, you get to learn an awful lot of information about how their economy is doing, what's going on, and is it good or is it bad and whatnot. But there aren't very many Italians. Oh yeah, and here's what I remember very well. That Filipina that's visiting me here, she came here last year. During high season in November, she made herself a vacation from Bahrain. Okay, she went from Bahrain, she took a vacation, she went to Phuket and she was in Patong. Said, very interesting thing. She goes now and she doesn't see a lot of Arabs. She said, last year, 12 months ago, you had lots of Saudis, and lots of Kuwaitis, and lots of Qataris, and lots of Emiratis, and suddenly they aren't there. And she kind of like asked me, well, I haven't seen them. I said, no, not really, not very many. And for some reason, she went the other day and said, well, let's just, look at the streets, and there aren't very many. So again, something's going on with their economies. Well, we know the answer. The answer is the overall Arab Revolution. Sure, we did not have anything going on in Kuwait. It's fairly peaceful, no real revolution there, okay? There hasn't been a real revolution in Saudi Arabia. There hasn't been anything going on in Qatar. But for some reason, these people aren't coming this year. They were last year, but not this year, okay? So, back to our last week vacation is apparently the lack of tourist flow is an indication that the economy is not running as well as it was running a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I usually get to talk to the old ladies at the massage parlors, and they got a major advantage. They've been there working for 5, 6, 10 years. Hey, how long you been working? She says, 8 years. So how is this year? She says, oh, bad. And I asked them, Have you seen as bad as this one? She says, no, 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 it's been always better. She said, this is now, meaning like the last 2 months, she's seen the worst since ever they've been working over the last 5, 6, or 7 years. So that could possibly be one explanation of the overall political instability. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but I can get very competently into economics. And it's a lot better to gauge the strength of the economy by talking people at the restaurants, the malls, and the shops than relying on government statistics. I mean, if you rely on government statistics and if you listen to governments, the Greek economy is now recovering and doing really well. But of course, that's totally untrue. Governments, usually, especially European governments, lie about their statistics, okay? Especially Club Med is very good at lying about statistics. So, when you gauge an economy, you always try to be on the ground and talk to people to see how things are going. Now, during the boom years, we had a lot of Bulgarians going and working in Greece for good salaries. Now we got this weird thing going on where Greeks are coming to work in Bulgaria. Now, Greek salaries are historically have been 2 times, sometimes 3 times higher than Bulgaria, and Bulgarians will routinely go and work to Greece and get all sorts of jobs. Now, most of these Bulgarians are back, and many of the Greeks are coming to Bulgaria or to Macedonia for jobs because their economic situation is not very good. So, empty tiger simply means that somehow it is a very good indicator of how, in this case we say the tourist economy is doing. Not the whole, but it also could be an indicator of the whole economy because Thailand is exporting these, let's say, cameras. I mean, I got these nice big Nikon camera. It's a DSLR, very good, with a very nice lens. Okay, it's a great camera. It says made in Thailand, and the lens itself made in Thailand. All right, well, they made them here, and they sell them where? Well, they sell them in Germany. They sell them in Greece. Well, but the Greeks aren't buying. They sell them in Italy, but the Italians aren't buying anymore. They sell them in Bulgaria, but Bulgarians aren't buying. They sold them in Ukraine. I'm sure they aren't selling anything now. Ukraine is in a revolution, okay? They sold them in the Arab world, but now the Arab world isn't buying either. So the problem is some of the things that Thailand was exporting, some of the exports aren't working because the customers out there in Australia are in trouble. In the UK, they are in trouble. Bulgarians aren't buying. So some of these are very nice, clean indicators, again, that things might not be going well for the economy, and that's a simple, easy, straightforward explanation of what is going on today. Good enough? Is it good enough? Questions? Does it want a break? Yeah. 10 minutes?